Hello, everybody. Let's move on to user frame and jog frame. And after we talk about these two frames, we can kind of summarize this topic on the frames because there are so many different frames out there. We don't really need to learn all of them, right? So just we got idea what frame is, right? So speaking of the what frame is, we still need to borrow ideas from the frame we already covered, which is two frame, in order to learn this new concept, new frames, user frame. All right, let's talk about new user frame first. Uh, User frame is the offset in the XYZ WPR, right? So that's the second time I mentioned the offset, right? And the first time when I mentioned it is that talk about on the two frame, right? So if you remember that. So two frame is a offset on the default two center point, which is on the center of the faceplate, right? That's the robot faceplate. That's the default. When you install the tooling, you need to change the default to the offset to the real TCP point, right? So that's what we talk about with the two frame. Now we are talking about user frame. User frame is also a offset. Offset from what? From the world frame, right? If you remember that we talk about world coordinate when we start with robot jogging. And also once we introduce the frame, we also mentioned that the world coordinate is actually correspond to the frame with the world frame, right? So the origin point, starting point 0, 0, 0 is somewhere on the robot, right? On the robot base, but not on the floor, right? So that's what I talked about before. Then that as a default, when we set up a user frame, we set up the offset, start from this origin point to move to somewhere else. So the 000 is not on the robot base anymore. It's somewhere, anywhere within the robot cell. So that will be your new 000 with the user frame. All right, you will see that at the end of the video once we set up. But you may ask, why do we need that? Why do we need to set up the offset from the world, right? It's pretty natural. You think the robot base will be the starting point, 000, right? So with tooling, maybe easy to understand the offset, but why do we need set up the offset with robot 000 from the base to somewhere else, right? Well, that relates to the job. Let's look at here with the HandlingPRO. So we have two boxes over here in this robot cell. One is the brown box, the other one is I call the blue box, right? So there are different features on top of the box, and it's like a machine, or we call a workspace, right? So for example, you're gonna do lots of work. We already work on different program, inside three, outside three, and line program from this brown box, right? You also did some of the programming with the blue box, right? So user frame basically is that you want to move the reference starting point somewhere here on the robot base 000 to the box, to the boxes, right? You can to move that to relevant to this blue box as one user frame, or you can set up different user frame to this brown box. So Fanuc robot can have, I think, up to five different, maybe I remember wrong, a number of user frame to set up. So each user frame you can associate with different work surface, workspace, work area. So when that work area change, right, similar to the two frame, right? Two frame, one of the advantage with two frame is that when the tooling is changed, I already demoed that, right? So they, for example, the length change or something, angle change, right? So you can just change, adjust the two frame, right? It will save lots time on the program. You don't need to touch up the positions in the program anymore. You only need to make adjustment on the two frame, right? Because your tooling change. Same idea here. So for example, this box, you did lots programming, and also you associate this box with a frame. Then later on, this box could move. For example, move to somewhere else, right? When this box move and all the positions you touch up associated with this box, then it doesn't work anymore. But if you have a frame associated with this box, you can just make the adjustment on this user frame, just as the two frame, right? You make the adjustment on the two frame when the tooling change. Oh, same idea is here. When the workspace change location, you can just change the user frame. Then every point you you taught on the workspace will be remaining, this will be kept the same, relevant with the position. So that's gonna save lots times when you do such modification. All right. So I'm gonna demonstrate this whole process. All right. So for now, I just want you to understand the reason behind this. All right. All right. Then just we just start to set up user frame for now. I want to set up a user frame associated with this blue box. Right. Same idea before. So we need to go to menu and then set up. Remember, if you remember the two frame, right? That basically, this is what we just left before. It's still in the two frame. Notice here, right? It's still in the menu of two frame and the method and two frame number 6, right? So here's some details regarding to the menu operation with the teach pendant. You want to set up different frames, but because you already in the two frame setup window, so whenever you press this menu and 6 setup, you directly go into there because that's where you left off. Then this is something I really don't like the this part of design with the menu. So you need to know how to get out from here. So how do you get out? You cannot get out from menu setup. You just keep going back to the same page. So how do you get out? Press previous. When you press previous, you get a chance to look at the overview with the two frames, right? We have 10 two frames on here. It's all listed on here. So from over here, we have a chance to press the function key others, right? Because we want to get out from the two frame. We want to go into user frame, right? So when we press F3 others, then there's a pop-up window, right? Allow you to make switch. So you can see number 1, two frame, number 2, jog frame. We'll talk about later after user frame. So we want to go into user frame, which is number 3. As you can see, there are also other type of frames, right? We don't want to talk about that. Uh, I think user frame, jog frame is enough for us to explore, right? So let's type in 3. So we want go into user frame. So now you can see all the user frame is here. Let's find out how many user frame you can have with 9, right? So before I don't know. Yeah, it just over here, right? So for this particular model of Fanuc robot, you can set up to 9 different user frame. So we want to set up number 1. I already changed the comment to blue box, right? So you don't have to. It just give you a more information. So when we press enter or go to F2 detail, so we go into the details of this user frame. So we are in the user frame screen now, and we're looking at the user frame number 1. The current method is 3-point. Let's find out is there any other methods. All right, so F2 is method. When we press, you can see 3 options: 3-point, 4-point, and direct entry. So I'd like to start with 3-point, right? So we'll just choose number 1, 3-point. All right. So if you still remember the 2-frame, same idea. So you need to set up 3-point to set up a frame, right? 3-point, but actually uh, it's different from the 3-point on the 2-frame. If you remember with 3-point on the 2-frame, we call that approach point, right? 3 approach point to the same point, but approach from 3 different angle. But then when we talk about the 6-point, the 3 additional point is similar to what you're seeing here. So you need to have the origin point and X direction and Y direction. So once you have these 3 points recorded, then the result should be calculated here. Right. So that's what we're gonna do with this procedure. Right. Let me start here. Let me clear out this. Then we start. All right. So uh, same as before, I already record a particular position as a position register, PR, in order to save me some time on this video. All right, I'm going to move to this corner. You can see here, it's called blue corner 1 top. I want to move there very fast. All right, so that's the corner we're gonna move to. So we want to set up the frame uh, based on this corner, right? So we go back to menu and set up. We should see the user frame, right? Remember that's where we left off, all right? So we are on that blue box corner now. So if we right now we haven't set up user frame yet, all right? But I want you to make some observation on here. So remember before we talk about we can jog robot in world coordinate. Right now it's in joint. I want to change to world. So I can change to world. And if I ask you, so we have 4 different corners on the blue box, right? So for example, if we want to move the robot TCP from corner number 1 to corner number 4, right? Uh, we are in world. So just go along this edge on the box. So what choice you should make by right hand rule, if you remember it, right? So maybe a little bit surprise to you, right? So you're supposed to move positive Y, not X, because you may think, okay, this is a catch point, right? So if you think right now, you look at this corner, right? If you want to move this, you may think, okay, my back of the hand is on here, right? So that's my index finger, so that's positive X, but actually it's wrong, right? If you remember, I mentioned about the back of the robot always on the part with the connections on here. So on this particular robot, the back of your robot is here. That's supposed to be the back of your hand when you position your right hand rule, right? So that direction is the positive X. And that this direction we want is positive Y. All right. So I will jog to verify if let you know if I'm right. All right. So we want to go from point 1, corner 1 to corner 4. So we have to go jog in world positive Y, right? So this is positive Y, right? Not the X. All right. So um, if we go back to minus Y, go back to the corner. So if I ask you from corner 1 to corner 2, so this is corner 2. If you want to move from corner 1 to corner 2, again, review of the right hand rule, supposed to be minus x, right? So just give you some review on this part, right? So this is what the world coordinate will be, right? So remember that even though it's a little bit awkward, that depends on if you are familiar, get used to it or not, right? So this is what we have with the world. Remember that we are going to set up the user frame. User frame is the offset from the default user world frame to the workspace we want to set up, right? So in this process, we got a chance to change that if you want, right? So let's go back to here with the user frame. So origin point, we can highlight here, record. So we just want to use this corner as the starting point. It's being recorded. So now the next one, you can see we want to let robot know which direction we want to set up as the X direction. So now it's our chance. Remember that, right? So uh, I just show you that if you want to move to this way, in the old default world, you have to use positive Y. But if you want to change the way you used to, similar to the brown box, if you want to use this direction as X, you could. This is your chance now, right? So now we jog robot in world. Right now, we need jog positive Y along the edge of this box to any point, just away from the original point, long enough for the computer to calculate the difference. Then I can record this on the X direction point, right? Shift record. So it's being recorded on there. So now if you want, we can go back to the original point here. Then we move the cursor to the Y direction. So if you want to set up the direction to corner number 2 as Y, this is the chance you can do that, right? So you still, because the user frame is not available yet, right? So you still have to use the old default world coordinate. So in world, I just show you, right? So we need to go minus X in order to go to the direction on the corner number 2. So once we move away from the original point, we can shift record to that the computer in the controller to calculate. Once we record this, those X and Y and Z, those zeros can change to different numbers. Okay, so we got the result. So now you can see here, right? So uh, even though we don't need to talk about the math calculation, right? But we can sort of make some sense on those numbers. So we got the result: X is 500, Y is 1,000, and Z is 330, roughly on that. And also on the R, we have a 90 degree, right? How do we interpret those numbers? Right. So let me show you from the top view on here. Let me zoom out. Okay. So the default robot 000, remember here is somewhere around the base, right? So that's world 000 default, which is default. And we use the corner number 1 as the original point, right? That's what we record here, right? And where exactly is this point? If you look at this corner here, in relation with this world 0, it's halfway on the, I put on there, right? The halfway on the square. So that means from here to this direction is half of the 1,000. remember one square on the floor is 1000. Sorry, not this. It's only one half, so 500. So that's why you got the on the x direction. Remember, user frame is the offset from the world default 000, right? So on x direction, you want to move in positive direction 500. That's exactly here, right? And then you can see here, this corner on the floor marked the exactly same the length on the square, right? So the square is 1000 square, right? So that's why the y is 1000. And then you may ask, oh, okay, what is z? Z is supposed to be 1000? No, remember that the 00 on the robot is not exactly on the floor. It's somewhere above floor. Exactly is 670, right? So I'm going to clear that so we can have a look, all right? So 00, remember if we talk about before, the 00 is somewhere around between the axis number 1 and axis number 2. So that means somewhere around here on the robot. So that on the floor, I believe I talked about before. Last time it's 670 high. And then if we look at this corner from the floor, from here to the floor, is 1000. Then exactly how high is this corner above the original point on the robot? So if we use 1000, subtract this 670, then we got 330. All right, so this is the X and Y and Z. How do we get there? All right, so we use the 3-point method, but we got the result we can figure out, right? And then how do you explain this 90 degree? Remember, yaw, pitch, roll. Roll is the angle around Z. Z is up and down, right? So when you need rotate 90 degree on Z. This is what happened. Remember, we want to set up the directions with the X and Y exactly we want, right? Those are the 2 points, right? So if you look at here on the Z, if we rotate 90 degree, so we can get a direction on the XY exactly we want, right? Shift, move to, let's move to the corner, right? So now instead of jogging world, right? So we can uh, jog within the user frame because we already finished the setup on user frame number 1, right? So we can, similar before, we can jog in 2 frame. Of course, we can jog in user frame. So what we do to jog the, how do we do to jog in order to jog in user frame, right? So first, we need to press the chord to get user, right? Remember this key, we got so many of them we can circle around, right? One of them is called user. So we stop there as a user. Then remember, we can have up to 9 different user frames. So we have to specify which one we are jogging, right? Similar to 2 frame. So that is activated by the jog menu. Press and hold shift, press chord. So not only the chord key, you need to have shift. So now you can see here, user frame is number 1, jog frame we'll talk about later, number 1. User frame is here. So we highlight user frame. So we already set up user frame number 1. So we want to jog into user frame number 1. So press 1. So if you want to verify, shift chord again. So you can see this 1 is being recorded. All right. Press shift chord again to close it. So now you are in user frame number 1. So remember that we prefer to have this as positive X and that as the positive Y. So this is the one we are recording these 2 positions. That's what we want. Let's see if we get it, right? So shift positive X. Yes, we got it, right? So if we jog in world, this is supposed to be positive y, but not positive x. Remember that? Okay, so if we go back to the corner here, let's verify the positive y if it exactly as what we planned from corner 1 to corner 2, right? So we can shift positive y, exactly what we planned. Okay, so this is the result of the user frame. So we can set up a user frame according to the workspace we work with. All right, so let me move back to here. Right, then in the process, we can also change to dictate which direction we want to use as X, which direction we want to use as Y, right? So we have more freedom now. So now let me let you to look at the basic position robots on there. So remember that, uh, let me go back to world, all right? Let me go back to world, go back to the original, uh, go back to zero user frame. If you choose to zero, that basically you use the default world, right now it's zero, right? So let's look at the position on the uh, robot. Remember this POSN key, bring up the position of your robot. You can look at the robot in world, and also you have other choice with joined, right? So if you press join, you will look at J1 to J6. We talked about this before. Then there's another choice. Remember here, user. So this is world, right? This is current one, right? So if we press F3, let's see what happened, all right? User, right? Nothing changed, right? The number doesn't change, but you can see here, right now, we, we're looking at the data robot position as user frame number 0 and two frame is number 1. But we want to look at if anything happened with this if we change to 1. Remember we talked about before, right? So we set up the user frame number 1, right? So now we change to number 1. But before I change, I want you to take a look at what we have right now. We have 500 on the X, 1000 on the Y, Z on the 330, right? So that's exactly what I just talked about, right? This way, half square 500, this way on Y is 1000, right? So now let's look at user frame number 1. So again, shift core, bring up the jog menu, change user frame from default 0 to 1. Now you see that number change. X instead before was 500, but now it's 0. Why? Because right now your robot is at the user frame 000, right? So that's why you have here 000, right? You got it? You understand what we get the result now, right? So if you look at from world, right? World tell you, okay, that's if we go back to world, 500, 1030, that's from world, right? That's from the default 00, somewhere around here. That's the 000 on world. But if you want to look at the same location, same position of robot in the view of the user, then user number 1, you already set up on here, that's your 000. And then because we twist the direction on the X and Y, so that's why we have some numbers on the W and R, not on P, right? So I don't recommend that you try to make sense with those three. Right? That's going to be like too much to look around to think about it, but you know where it come from, right? So that's exactly what we did with this procedure. Right? So that let me look at back here. So now you should understand why we can do this to here, right? The purpose I haven't finished yet, right? So I'm gonna use different video to talk about the purpose, the applications, but you understand what we have on the user frame. Then let's look at the next slide on the jog frame. So I don't even want to show you the procedures on the jog frame. So you just need to understand jog frame is another frame used when the part is oriented differently from world frame. All right. So if you have a part, you need to work on this part a lot, very often, but this part is happen just located in a very awkward angle compared with the world 000. Then you need to do some lots jogging with this part. Then you have a choice. You can set up a particular jog frame associated with this part. Once you set it up, it allow you to jog within this menu, this frame to along the parts axis. All right. So let me see if I can illustrate that. All right. So for example, if I have a part, a box, right, located like on here on the floor, right? So this box, as you can see here, is in the very odd angle with the 000, right? It's different from the blue box and brown box. It's in somewhere it's right between here, right? If you look at the angle, right, there's some odd angle here, right? But you need to do a lot of work on this box. So when you try to jog on this box, right, it's really awkward. It's hard to do that with world, right? But you could set up a user frame, right? If you understand what we did on here, you could set up a user frame like this. But uh, Fanuc robot is just think, okay, I can give you another choice called jog frame. So you can set up different jog frame associated with this box, right? So it's just like similar to user frame, but they're different. The difference with this is that you will see that jog frame can only work with menu operation, all right, not program operation, right? So that's the what you will see on here, this part. Let's do the summary first, all right? So we talk about the two frame. Two frame tells the controller where the two frame is relevant to the center of the faceplate. Again, offset from the default. And then we talk about user frame. User frame is the offset, tell the uh, controller where the user frame is relevant to world frame, the default 00, right? So they are both offsets. They're talking about the same thing, right? Just apply on different subject, right? Different part of on the robot. Then how do you choose different frame numbers? Manually, right? You use the shift core. I already demonstrated that, right? So if you look at on the jog menu, so now it should make more sense now. If we go back to here, whenever we bring shift core, bring up this, you can see you can change two frame number, jog frame number. I just talk about that, right? User frame. So that's how you change the jogging manually on there. But in the program, how do you change between the numbers? In teach pendant program, you need to use a special instruction called parameter instruction to select a number. I don't know if you notice on the program we have been working with, it always start with two instructions, user frame underscore number 0, which is the default world. We want to use world as default in the program, but we could change to different numbers. For example, number 1, we already set it up. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to do that. And also the other instruction to tell the controller which two frame we're using, right? We're using two frame number 1. So this is how do you do it in the manual mode and in the program, right? So this is the summary with the frame, right? So I'm going to talk about applications with user frame on the next video. How do we use the user frame? I'll see you there.